For this evening's accent on academics, Yorktown Middle School will present All is Relative, Tout I'm going to say it again. It's in French, and I had 3 years of Spanish. Tout est relatif. Hopefully that's correct, which means everything is relative. Yorktown Middle School 8th grade French 2 students used prior knowledge of their local community history to create a museum exhibit demonstrating the extent of the involvement of the French in the Revolutionary War and the bias in the retelling of history as it relates to the Battle of Yorktown. Dr. Susan Hutton, principal, will now introduce tonight's presenters. Dr. Hutton.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Also, good evening, Chairman of the Board, Dr. George, and esteemed school board members. I am Susan Hutton, principal of Yorktown Middle School, and tonight I'm excited to share one of our World Language Teachers projects from last year. Madam Kaufman-Perry's French 2 students worked in teams to talk about historical perspective and bias in English and French. The students used critical thinking, made real-life connections, and collaborated with their peers and community at large using both English and French history and languages. The project was a collaboration with 6th and 7th grade social studies and English teachers, the French American School of Norfolk, the NATO French community, the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation, and the Yorktown Victory Center Museum. In teams of 4 or 5 students, they wrote reports in both languages, created codes, and links to the Yorktown Virginia Center Museum. Mrs. Price Hardister from the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation visited the classroom during the learning process and provided feedback on the students' projects. The class showcased their final work on May 9th at the museum. The class also went on a field trip to see the frigate Hermione at Yorktown in June. With me this evening is Madame Kaufman-Perry, French teacher at Yorktown Middle School, and 3 of her current and former students, Kevin Rinke, Sophie Martin, and David Patterson, who at this time will tell us more about the project Tout est Relatif, or Everything is Relative.
Thank you, Dr. Hutton. Good evening. Dr. Shandor, Dr. George, and members of the school board. I am Minouche Kaufman-Perry. I led, designed, and implemented the project-based unit called Tout Est Relatif, Everything is Relative, with the collaboration and support of parents, administrators, social studies, French, and technology teachers, as well as the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation Education Coordinator, Mrs. Price Hardister. In designing the project, our goal was not only to incorporate the American Council of the Teaching of Foreign Languages skills for French 2, and the use of the past and present tenses. It was also to make cross-cultural, I apologize, this was not started. Cross-cultural connections, collaborations include writing across the curriculum in both the target language and in English. The 21st century competencies included collaboration and communication skills that are used extensively in the students' interviews electronically, and communication skills that were used to interview the primary sources, to gather the bank of knowledge used for the creation of the museum exhibits and presentations. The use of technology was instrumental in gathering, sorting, discriminating, organizing, and creating QR codes to present the information for an accurate retelling of the historical factors leading to the victory at Yorktown in 1781. In addition, students learned about the important role of the city of Yorktown, where they all reside, and how it played a role during the Revolutionary War. Students compared and contrasted how this victory is taught to native French students in France and where they learn here. Finally, in keeping with the goals of our school's improvement plan, we incorporated writing skills into the various phases of the project. This was evident in the culminating presentation that required persuasive speech, writing, and public speaking skills, informational writing, such as showing the role of bias when writing history, summarizing and paraphrasing of information from their research in both French and English. And I will finish by saying a quote from Mrs. Price Hardister. Every student used excellent public speaking skills, poise, and comfort levels in speaking French and loud enough that could be heard clearly in the back of a room with about 65 to 70 people, including the French perspective. For example, what do the French think of Benjamin Franklin today? And now I will present to you David, Sophie, and Kevin.
When I first heard about the Tout Est Relatif project, I figured it was going to be another average history project that I've done every year since the first grade. However, my opinion was changed when we started working on the project in early December of 2014. When our group started working on the project, our French teacher, Madame Perry, informed us that we needed to incorporate both the French and English languages. Sophie and I, along with Kylie Dryden and Sarah Moneymaker, met at the Yorktown Library several times, brainstorming ideas and discussing our roles towards the research and presentation. Because of the day and age that we live in, Sophie Martin and I decided to incorporate easy-to-use technology to attract a younger audience, as well as create an interactive exhibit. Hence, we created our own quick response barcodes, or QR codes for short, and translated them into both French and English. A QR code is a small matrix barcode containing information that can be easily accessed by downloading a free QR scanner app to any smartphone or tablet. This not only saved on space, but allowed visitors to Yorktown the option to scan and read the desired information in either French or English. This was to prepare for the visit of the French frigate Hermignon and her French-speaking crew and visitors.
We also wrote letters to the French students at the French-American School of Norfolk, asking them what they knew of the Revolutionary War and the impact the French had. We found out that the French students did not know about October 19th until they visited Yorktown. Not only did we get their opinion, we also wrote letters and interviewed French Commandant Major Proux, chief of the NATO French National Support Element at Norfolk. He shared his knowledge to help us make authentic exhibits. One of the things he told the Rochambeau group was that there was a Francophobia at the time. You do not always get the French point of view when you're in history class, so it was refreshing to look at history from a different angle. It was amazing seeing our projects in the museum, as well as going to see the Hermione and getting interviewed by various newspapers from all over Hampton Roads and from France. It was really gratifying knowing that our projects weren't for naught and that people actually cared about what we had created.
Il est préférable d'être seul plutôt que d'être en mauvaise compagnie. It is far better to be alone than to be in bad company. I came from overseas and I didn't know a whole lot of English, and my French was wicked best. I didn't know about the history of Yorktown at all. The Tout Est Relatif project not only taught me about local and national history, but it also taught me or helped me with a speech in French and English. Everyone knows who George Washington General was. But not everyone knows who his best friend was, General Lafayette, whom he met during the Revolutionary War. This project not only impacted my life, but it also impacted the life of the people in this community. It feels like many people have become numb to the rich history right here in Yorktown. I felt like my French class's project and the visit of the Hermione was an importance to the awakening of the role of the French in winning the Revolutionary War right here in Yorktown. I think that October 19th should be a county holiday.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Any comments by the board members?
October 19th is a county holiday, just not a school holiday, but it was a school holiday way back when, so maybe we ought to revisit that. But yeah, great presentation, especially coming from York Middle School, what can I say? But I like the fact that what you said at the very beginning and when the students started presenting, and that was, you just thought it was going to be just another project. And then all of you found out it was much, much more than that. So that's what we as school board members really like to hear, because we know then you're going to walk away with something that you'll never forget and you'll be able to share with others. But we live here. This is Yorktown. I mean, and to bring that to life, great, wonderful. Did a great job. And thank you.
I was going to say the same thing. I was really impressed when you first spoke and you said you thought it was going to be another history project that you'd had all these year after year. But What was the ingredient that really woke you up in this project?
It was mostly, it wasn't just for our benefit, it was for everybody who viewed the project that would learn more. So if, for instance, I didn't know some of the things that we put into this project, and it helped me learn a lot. And, back in, whenever we learned about the Revolutionary War, you never really learn as much as we did during this project, because, we just glance over it because we live in an area that the Revolutionary War really took place in. So to learn more from the French side was a really big impact for me personally, and I'm sure it helped everybody else who viewed the project. It hit really close to home. So.
Well done. You guys did a great job.
Very good.
I'd just like to echo their comments. One of the things that always sort of troubles me is when folks that live here their whole life and they know nothing about Jamestown, Yorktown, Williamsburg, basically, and sometimes that happens. You get so just so complacent and so used to everyday life. So when you bring this thing to the forefront, especially in the schools like this, I just think it's wonderful. I mean, our history here, it's not ordinary history, it's extraordinary history. I mean, what happened here, right here in our backyard. So I am just so glad to see that, just at least one more person hears this and puts this in a different perspective than just day-to-day living. So thank you so much.
My question for them, impressive presentation, and with your experience now, what would you like to do as the next step with what you've learned? Loaded question.
I guess it would be really interesting to see, other classes do this, other, subjects necessarily kind of involve Yorktown in various projects that we do, because like Mr. George, is that your name? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Mr. George said, people kind of become numb to the history here, so it would be interesting to see, other schools, other classes sort of involve history, Yorktown, and so people here can really realize that we live in an important place and it's not necessarily just history.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great job.